our ancestors formulated the highest concept defining the laws of life, the divinity and the purpose of spirituality before the arrival of Christian missionaries in Africa. God was already known in Africa by names such as Nyami, Onyankopon, Mskaban, Tiko, Mungu, Ngai, Katonda, Ruwa, Ruhanga, Modimo, Unkulunkulu, Mwali, Mwari, and 1,000 many more names. This is a sample of Gye Nyame Avenue, Obeng in Ghana, a critical aspect of their ancient wisdom. Greek philosophy was an offspring of ancient Egyptian or African mystery systems. This is proof for the statements that we have just uttered. The Egyptian theory of salvation became the purpose of Greek philosophy. Listen to this statement that supports the idea that Africans already had the concept of a creator, now popularly known as God. The earliest theory of salvation, which Christians speak about and many other religions speak about salvation, is an African theory. That's the earliest theory of salvation, is an African theory. Or the Egyptian mystery system or the African mystery system had as its most important object the deification of man, or Muntu or Bantu, and it taught that the soul of man, if liberated from its bodily fetters, could enable him or her to become godlike and see the gods in this life and attain the beatific vision and hold communion with the immortals. Who are these immortals? Who are these godlike entities that you have to see? In other words, what it means is you connect a higher spirituality. You also use religion or rituals as a Muntu or Bantu to connect to that higher spirituality. One of the earliest or oldest writers, Plotinus, defines this experience as the liberation of the mind from its finite consciousness. So our human consciousness or the Muntu consciousness is finite, but the process of African salvation makes it become infinite, or in other words unlimited. That is when it becomes godlike, when it becomes one and is identified with the infinite. This liberation was not only a freedom of the soul from bodily impediments, but also from the wheel of reincarnation or rebirth. It involved a process of disciplines or purification, both for the body and the soul. So this is the whole mystery system of the original mystery system explained. So it took the mind and expanded it and gave it immortality. Since the mystery system offered the salvation of the soul, it placed great emphasis upon the soul's immortality. So the term immortal soul is an African concept, also known as the living dead. Ancient Africans, our ancestors, knew this, practiced these mystery systems. Question that we have to ask now, is Jesus necessary then? Jesus in Africa. Why do Africans follow Jesus and ditch this original understanding and ancestral soul-saving truisms? Why? What's going on there? So the core thematic question is, what has Jesus done for Africa? That's the thematic question that we must deal with. The answer will vary greatly on who you believe or who you ask. You see here, one of the most anti-Western politician ever to walk the continent of Africa, but you can see he is kissing the ring of a papal representative. It means there is a lot of other gray areas that these people that are so vocal in practice, they practice this religion. So Jesus, or the religion that is based on Jesus' teaching, dominates African thinking today. Therefore, we ought to ask, why is Africa and Africans going backwards and not becoming paradisiacal and becoming enlightened? Why would black people easily embrace the religions of their oppressor and enslaver with all the entities that are included therein? Black people at vast rates have embraced European created God, and a few whites now follow that and on a lukewarm or accelerated decline, while over 90% of Africa is now Christian. Why and what is going on? What could be the problem? Is there a problem or there is no problem? Already we have identified that there is a big problem there. The question we want to deal with now is, who was Jesus? Was he a European or he was an African? And is it important? Is this Jesus? Because once you say that, yes, this is Jesus, you are saying this is God. At the same time, if you say this black face is Jesus, you are also saying God was black. So these are the two dichotomies that lock African and that aligns African spirituality to reality. And the results from either of these concepts or from both must speak for themselves. If this is real God, there shouldn't be hospitals, there shouldn't be accidents, there shouldn't be suffering, there shouldn't be wars, because we know that he came and defeated sin on earth, defeated the devil on earth, but still we have the same problems that he came to save us from. And the problems will continue to be with us right into the future. So what's the problem? Let's ask about this Jesus first, whom we are given by Christianity. The question of Jewish ancestry, of Jesus' Jewish ancestry, has been the subject of controversy. Even the concept of Jews themselves has been the subject of controversy over 2 centuries and has yet to be resolved. The Rhineland hypothesis depicts Eastern European Jews as a population isolate that emerged from a small group of German Jews who migrated eastwards and expanded rapidly. Alternatively, the Khazarian hypothesis suggests that the Eastern European Jews descended from the Khazars, an amalgam of Turkic clans that settled the Caucasus in the early centuries of this common era and converted to Judaism in the 8th century. The Mesopotamian and Greco-Roman Jews continuously reinforced the Judaized empire until the 13th century. Following the collapse of their empire, the Judeo-Khazars fled to Eastern Europe. The rise of European Jew is therefore explained by the contribution of the Judeo-Khazars. These are the Jews that are there today. So when you say Israel is a blessed nation, the current state of Israel is a blessed nation, these are the people that you are pointing to. So the original Jew should have been of African descent, because the current country Israel is found in Africa. So it's clear that the Jews we are talking about, the Jesus you talk about, he is an amalgam of various ideologies, various peoples. So could the adoption of Jesus as an African God be the reason Africa is suffering? Why would over 1 billion black humans entertain images of a God who looks a lot different from them and a lot is the same as the oppressor? And then they are told that God created man in his own image. The image that is spoken of, is it different from the skin color? There has to be one image of who Adam looks like. Either Adam looked like these people or he looked like the European. And then if Adam looked like a European, where did the black people come from? If it is the other way, where did the white men come from, or the other races come from? This is a question that is continuously bedeviled Christianity. 99% of the inhabitants of Africa are black, but they worship a God, a European God who is different from them. For such a submission, our resources are taken away by guile and covetousness and trickeries, by people who emphasize thou shalt not steal concept of the 10 commandments. But these are the same people with a banking system, technological system, economic system, the monetary system that deprives Africans from benefiting from the resources that are in Africa. The Christians do that. The slave ships were named after Jesus. They did the same thing. The colonizers did the same thing. Our lives are spent fighting poverty in Africa, squalor and debt. Even black people around the world continuously find themselves subservient to Europeans. What's the problem? What's happening? We have to ask this question. What have we benefited from this religion? Let's look at the ancient Egyptians, how they conceptualized the evil or the devil or Set or Satan or Shatter. They saw as the adversary of the black Egyptians. So they call this force Set or Shatter, but we deal with the Typhon, which is the same thing. And the following clears up any confusion about what is meant by red, but also what is meant by black. Typhon, they call everything dry, fiery, desiccative, and antagonistic to moisture, for which reason, as they believe him to have been red-skinned and yellowish in person, they do not very willingly meet or converse with pleasure with people having such a complexion. These are ancient Africans, the ancient black people in Africa. On the other hand, they fable that Osiris was black colored, whereas grayness is as it were a growing hair, that the reason of desiccation comes upon them who are past their prime. What the Egyptians would and would not say concerning the depiction of this force, or the agents of this force called Shatter. Plutarch begins the report of the complexion of Seth saying they believe in reference to the Egyptians. He reports this as if it were something he obtained from Egyptian sources. It is interesting that Plutarch begins the report of the Egyptians' attitudes towards pale individuals, saying they do not. He reports this as if it were an observation rather than what he was told or read. This is important because there are some attitudes that are more likely to be observed than talked about. Remember, Plutarch was very likely a pale individual himself, or European himself, so the Egyptians would have been unlikely to volunteer this sentiment. When Herodotus in his book The Histories, book 2, page 39, reports that Egyptians who do not kiss a Greek or use their utensils, he gives the Egyptian practice of selling to Greeks cursed cattle meat as the reason. While we do not doubt this could be the reason why Plutarch's information inadvertently provides us with a secondary reason for this behavior that the Egyptians may not have so readily discussed. There was color distinction about the divinities that were allowed and accepted within our ancient ancestors. So pale complexions or yellowish complexions were associated with Scythian forces, and therefore they were not held in high esteem or accepted, but that those who were darker were accepted and embraced. So if our God today is totally opposite that of Osiris or Apis, who was black and received secondary honors to those paid to Apis, besides Egypt, which is of a black soil of the highest degree, what would happen to our spirituality and our understanding? That we are under a difficult situation in terms of Jesus, and therefore we will not be able to survive. So you can study all this from the book The Osiris Prophecy by Ra-Nefer Amun, and this is the face of the God that is described and that we must associate ourselves with black hair like that, with all serpentine forces like that, with a blunt nose and a big mouth like that. This is exactly what this book explains and what our attitude should be. It should not be like that or like this, because Jesus in Africa is a tool today used by Europeans and white Arabs to enslave African minds to eternal mental and spiritual dependence. That's why we cannot invent and think beyond what we are given and beyond what is given. That's why there is a mortal hatred for our traditions. That's why the Bible has been abused and used against us, and the Quran has been used against us. And these are heathens. These are heathens according to our ancient ancestors. These are heathens who are not even supposed to be amongst us, to be teaching us, to be leading us, to be guiding us. So that is the reason why Africa is in trouble. Think about this truth as we fight for the survival of Africa from the Chinese who are recolonizing us. Jesus will not come and save us. He did not save those who were going into slavery. He did not save our continent from being colonized. He has not saved anybody from problems and difficulties that politics, civil wars, poverty bedevils us. Who then will save us? We and our own ancestors and our own knowledge and the Creator and our appeal to the Creator is the only solution that can save us. Remember, they also tell us that Africa is not poor. We are stealing its wealth. That's what they are saying. And this is the map. This was on Al Jazeera. It's time to change the way we talk and think about Africa. It's not poor. That's why the Chinese are coming to Africa, because there is wealthy, untold wealth. It's the richest continent on earth. Africa is the largest continent on earth. Africa. And the problem is this Jesus factor is one of the big problems which we must analyze and liberate ourselves from. What can you and me do about this? Yes, we are in this together. Our ancestors, the Creator, and many other people are watching us as Africans. How we will extricate ourselves from this. So you need to spread this message that China is recolonizing Africa and will take over the whole continent if we do not stop it. Let others know this. You also need to spread the message that the truth about who we are lies in our own eternal knowledge, the philosophy that we explained in the beginning, not imported religions with gods that look different from us. This is all we need. This is what will save us. Self-service breeds self-preservation. That's the concept of salvation taught by our ancestors. Thank you. Siyabonga, tatenda. This is Priest Rabbi Elem Dumizulu. Subscribe to our channel, Hamiti Hebrew Ethic. Till we meet again, goodbye.